Today we're going to talk about the Rapid Pro estimation. In previous videos, we've talked about the general functions of the system. With the Rapid Pro, we've talked about setting up the structural elements of the build. We've talked about setting up finishing items. But today we're going to talk about strategy. It's really important to be able to give the builder, as an estimator, it's important to give the builder options with pricing. And it's also really important for the builder to give the homeowner options with pricing. Now, when we give the homeowner options for pricing, we don't want to show the homeowner all the builder's costings. We've thought about that process and we make sure the builder is protected. That's the number one rule that we've always had inside this system. To start off, what we're going to run through here is I'm going to show you how to put the system into client mode. There's a negative button up the top near the padlock. If you click the negative button, all this costing that is the builder's costing is going to disappear. As you can see, we're collapsing costings, so the client doesn't know that you're making 20%. The client doesn't know the true construction price. It's literally the client's construction price. We've already spoken about the strategy of custom material, high-level specification, custom builder, all these features. Sometimes when we do estimating, there's non-negotiables. The non-negotiables are, you've put on the plan high-level specification items. I'm a custom builder who engages with trades at $100, $200 an hour of other people, right? These are non-negotiables. We might be going into the client meeting or presenting a costing at $900,000, but what's really critical is to be able to give the option to say, this is how we can revise the costing. So at a qualifying stage, what we can do is we're going to talk about the finishing items and how we can revise that budget. On the right-hand side panel, we can see that we've spent an extra $50,000 in the kitchen. We've already been taught that there is a base inclusions list, and then we go through the price library and we find out what we've added into the system, which makes the build so expensive. We've got an option inside of our system to change a master heading specification. And we can break it down into the kitchen, and then we can break it down into the category. What I like to do from my point of view is say, if we've got a high-level kitchen, let's leave it at high, but let's change the laundry to low. And what you'll end up seeing is that all the items inside the kitchen stay at high, but the pricing for the laundry items goes down to low. If this doesn't impact the construction price as much as you thought, maybe we're going to have to put in a mid specification for the kitchen, and our price of $53,000 allowance is going to go down to $39,000. If that's still a non-negotiable, let's go back into the refinement of the items inside the kitchen. Let's go into the appliances and let's change that to medium. Let's go into the skylights, change that to medium. And then we can narrow it down a little bit further. Unfortunately, we all have hopes and dreams of a wonderful, lovely kitchen. But the reality is, if we want to build this project, we have to make sacrifices. This program is giving you the option to make those sacrifices. So as an estimator to a builder, we can say, hey, these are your options. As a builder to the homeowner, these are your options. This is exactly how the rest of the specification items inside the finishing part is established. We want to go into the bedroom and say, look, these are the items that you've added in. We're just going to go and put in some more down lights, some more pendant lights, some more two-ways, some dimmers. Let's get a little bit creative, okay? Ceiling fans. Let's do a raking ceiling, all that sort of stuff. Now, when it comes to the build, we can't really change a specification for the structure of the ceiling. So we have to leave that at high. But what we can do is we can go into the roads and joinery. Instead of spending $31,000, let's put in entry-level robes to the master bedroom. And our price is going to go down. So now we're starting to refine the costings. We might not be achieving a huge amount of savings, but what we're actually showing our homeowners and what the estimator is showing the builder is that we're flexible. This is all linked to the back-end database, and this is all that strategy of putting everything together to make sure that our costings are covered. When we go into the main living room, we've got the same function set up. Let's change everything in the main living room to low. Now we're starting with a budget of $100,000 extra. So we've spent some money. Let's change that to low. And now our budget's going to go down to somewhere around 50 once it all calculates and resets. So that construction price up the top is now going to be changed. So when I expand out of my main living, we come down to $60,000. Let's go one step further and let's read the items that we put into the estimate. Now, it's not our fault that we have to replace all the timber flooring. It's not our fault that we wanted a powder room. What we want to be able to do is expand out on these fields and say, these are the costings that we've added into the system. If it's non-negotiable that we have to have high level balustrade, let's change it to high, and then the construction price will naturally go up. We can continue to go out into the system a lot further into details. We can go into the wet rooms and we can do the same process. Change it to low, change it to medium, change it to high. Let's expand out on each category and say, hey, how about we take out these items that are put into the estimate? Let's be flexible. It can work the other way around as well. We can add items into the estimate. These are all preset functions. This strategy of changing low to medium to high only really works with the kitchen, laundry, bedrooms, living rooms, wet rooms, and heating and cooling. We don't want to be changing the building structure specification. We don't want to be changing the site specification to low to medium to high. These are the rules of the builder, and this is what's put into place. There's no point revising the specification level for concrete because as a builder, we engage with a certain level of quality. We can't change that specification. What we possibly could do is when we get into our window upgrades, maybe we can start to remove some of the upgrades that have been put into the system. Now, there's another way we can do an overall change. I don't particularly like this process, but these are the options that are available to you. If you're going into a client meeting and we've exceeded the client's budget, let's do a hypothetical. I don't encourage reducing our pricing ever, but what we can say to our clients is, I'm the type of builder that engages with responsible trades who complete the project. You can find another builder who is in a different level and a different league. We're not saying that that builder is not capable of doing the project, but this is our settings. But if you were to go to a different style of builder, we can change it to a project builder and the construction price will come down because they engage with cheaper trades. However, the way my company is structured, we don't do that. These are the options that are built into the system. We don't believe in necessarily changing the settings to suit the client's budget because it's very important, but it's also okay and acceptable to show the client, if this was a different situation, these are the outcomes. Because what we're trying to achieve here is explain to these homeowners how the costings are put together. They might be painting a picture in their head that you're a volume home builder building their house and you get everything at cheap rates. That's okay. This is what the construction price will be. But this is not what's happening in reality. So I do kind of encourage builders to show this level of platform, hide the costings and say, if I was a project builder, if I was a volume builder, this is what could possibly happen. But the reality is, this is the situation. This is the type of builder you're engaging with. I am a custom home builder who engages with experienced trades who's going to get your project completed. So it's using the strategy that's built into the system. If we are really trying to save money, if we're really trying to look at different options, we might have to say to the client, look, you can't afford a high level specification build. Straight up, it can't happen. You can do a master overwrite and change the settings to low. And this is all about being transparent to the client and giving them controls and changing the specification. If we click and change the settings to low, we could possibly save $100,000. I'm saying that because I'm looking at the calculation as it automatically goes down. This is referencing the back-end database, so you can transfer to the client. Now, in our previous sessions, we've spoken about what a low specification looks like. If you go to our cost guide, it's going to give you a breakdown of the prime costs allowances that go into the estimate. We've already spoken about in previous videos about what's been put to here. However, we've got to make sure we stand firm on what our rules are and what our settings are as a builder inside of estimating a lot. We should never have to sacrifice the quality. We should never have to sacrifice our margin or our contingencies in order to meet a client's budget. The rules are the rules, and this is how we do estimating. We can show the client different situations, but we shouldn't be putting extra features on the plans that are potentially blowing out the cost. When we do look at the overall project, we can look on the right-hand side panel and see all these extra features that cost a lot of money. So I want to get builders to go down into the additional construction costings, expand out on the categories and see where the money is being spent. These are the functions that we have in the system, and this is what makes Estimating Online set apart from other software platforms. We want to give you the option to be able to say, hey, there's money spent over here and over here. Going from the right-hand side panel, we can see where the money has been spent. We expand out on the main living room of the $65,000, we see where the money's spent. We expand out on the floor treatments, the external doors, everything is inside the estimation, and we can explain to you where the money is spent. We need to make it very clear that if you put it on the plan, we are responsible for estimating what's on the plan. We can put this into the system, and then we can be transparent with our homeowner or our builder and saying this is what has been allowed for. There are some things that are non-negotiables. What we need to make sure is we need to allow management days from the trades and suppliers. Now, what we're trying to potentially say is when we click out on our additional labor days, we need to evaluate where the risk is. If the carpentry is hard, meaning we've got curved walls, or we've got different levels of heights, or we've got just random things inside of the carpentry scope that is going to blow out in time, we need to make sure we add additional labor days. If we have, for example, an electrical scope that is just absolutely ridiculous. We've got strip lights, we've got pendant lights, we've got track lighting, we've got all these different types of GPOs. We need to make sure we allow some additional labor days due to the complexity. We want to go down into the earthworks because we have a difficult site. Let's add in some manual labor days. The strategy of thinking how trades are going to think is just as important as entering the data into the system. The first part of our estimating role is to put the data into the system. The second one is to try to think how the builder is going to be charged. Then we need to pass that cost on to the homeowner so we capture the costings. And that's what manual labor days is all about. Some of the other features that we have inside the system that will improve your scope and communication to the homeowner is the lock feature. I've said previously that the specification is non-negotiable for the structural items. Let's use the padlock and lock features that are inside the system so we can't make the changes. When you press lock, we can't add these items inside the system. We can't make a mistake. If we want to lock our additional works, lock the additional works. However, when we go into all these other features, we can have this unlocked, and then we can add all these items back in. We can create it active. We can reduce the items. But we need to make it very clear that this is non-negotiable. These settings can't be changed. This is what you've drawn on the plan, and this is the construction cost. So just to rehash what I'm talking about with the Rapid Pro estimation, we want to get comfortable showing the client costings. We want to be able to use the collapse and fold button to show that this is the estimation and this is the client cost. If you want to get tricky, we can actually padlock the items so the button is not able to be clicked. We can put pin codes on this padlock. We can do all different features to make the builder's life a lot easier. We want to be able to say to the homeowner, look, what you've selected is a high level specification. We want to change it to low and show them the outcome. Doesn't mean that that's where the price is going to stay. Don't be afraid to click the button and just show them, well, if you had a low level specification, this is what it can do, but you've selected A, B, C. This is why we have to leave those settings at high. Be very transparent with your homeowner or your builder and say, this is how we are structured as a company. We have to be a custom home builder. However, if you engage with a different style of builder, the project can be more cheaper. Offer some advice. Sometimes advice is actually really important. It builds trust, it builds transparency. We're not hiding information, we're just being very clear. We want to be open and transparent about changing the specification of the finishing items. We don't want to change structural items. I've already run through the high, mediums, and lows, but these are the features that were built into the system. My advice is practice, practice, practice. The more information we can give to homeowners, I believe, the better transparency we're going to offer and make it a lot easier. So that's basically the strategy of the Rapid Pro estimation. And hopefully you can find it useful and we continue to win more work.